happens. So,
Recording. Yeah, recording.
you recording?
I am.
All right. So, who was your best friend in the West Novas?
What was my best friend? My rifle was my best friend.
Did you have a name for it?
No, I didn't have a name for it, but I guess that's every soldier's best friend. It would be his rifle, begin with. And everybody else in the regiment would be your best friend because you depended on them all the time. They were all best friends. Still are. What's left of them? There's not too many left of the old combat soldiers. They're gone now.
Well, it seems like a great bunch of guys from all the fellows I've met. What's your happiest memory of your time with the West Novas?
I think the happiest time, it's funny to say, but I think the happiest time was the day I got hit. I was being sent back out of the front lines back to a hospital in England. So I think that was about the happiest time I was, the day that I got hit by a piece of shrapnel of a shell.
Can you describe what happened that day leading up to that?
Pretty well. It's hard to forget something like that. It was around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had just got a couple of reinforcements up to the front lines. And he's asking me, I looked and I saw a mule train coming with some supplies for us. And he's asking me, just a young fella, didn't know too much about the front line situation. He's asked me, anybody getting killed or getting wounded up here? So when I saw the mule train coming, I said, if we don't get the hell out of here, somebody's going to get hit shortly. And I never had the words out of my mouth when bango, I got it. Because I know the Germans were watching the mule train coming in, and they were serialing in on it, and that's what happened. And I would imagine every time that guy saw a mule, he'd be pretty scared after that. So that was about the happiest evening that I had. I was sent back, and I had 7 months in the hospital. White sheets, beautiful nurses looking after you. What more could you want?
That's great. That's great. What do you think the funniest thing you ever saw was? Do you remember a funny incident while you were serving with the West Novas?
No, I don't think.
Okay, no worries.
No, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a war. It's not so funny. Then, what do you think was the bravest thing you ever saw?
Well, I would think that all the all the soldiers that were getting shot and wounded and seeing their buddies getting shot and wounded, and still they went without regard for themselves. I think they were all, you couldn't single anyone out. I think they were all in the same category as being brave people.
That's fair. That's fair enough. Do you remember a time when you were the most afraid?
Every day. Every day that you were in battle, you were scared. I know I was, and I would imagine that most of the soldiers would be scared going in with this noise and the dying and wounded soldiers and people getting killed. You were always pretty well scared. I know what I was. The worst thing I think I ever saw was when we were going in to take the town of Ortona. I come across this little boy. He was about 8 years old. He was dying. I knew he was dying because he had the back of his head blown up. And I stopped for a little while, and I was holding his hand. And I get pretty emotional when I think of it. There was nobody there with him. And I didn't know then, I still don't know why he was there amongst the dead and dying soldiers. And I know how much afraid that he must have been with nobody there to comfort him. And that little fella has traveled with me for the past 50 years or 60 years. I see him all the time. He never gets much older. He's around the age of 8 or 9, I would say. And he was just too young to die in war, I think. And I'm sure that I'll see him again. Nobody ever knew about him until 2 years. My wife died 12 years ago. She never knew about him. Nobody knew about him but me. I told the story about 3 years ago. I figured that our journey would be over, but it still isn't over. So that's why I'm telling you today that the combat soldier, they'll never get over the war. I know I don't. I didn't. Although I was fortunate to have a pretty good life after the war. I had a good wife and family. And they all understood. So that was about the worst experience I had. I still see that little fella, and I guess you can say that was my first son. I called it, I wrote a story on it a couple of years ago, and I called it My Little Son. It was a stranger, I never knew his name, and that's the way it still is today. So that's one of my worst experiences, and it still stays with me.
Jesus.
And that's why I'm trying to tell you that a combat, so this is one story about thousands of different stories that affects people different ways. And that's why I'm trying to tell you a combat soldier will never get over the war.
I can understand. That's really tough. Thanks for telling us that. That's Jesus. That's awful. And that would go into what did you hate most about the war?
Well, this the stuff you hate most about the war is seeing civilians getting killed, girls and young fellas and young people and old people that had nothing to do with starting the war and no way to stop it. And those are the people who have become casualties of war. And I don't know how you're going to find a way to avoid starting wars, avoid killing innocent people. This is the worst. You don't mind seeing a soldier getting killed, that's his job. But when you see civilians getting killed, young kids like that young boy, that's what hits home.
Yeah. And somebody's coming up, so we'll just cut for a sec. I'm in the middle of a beer.
Oh,
I gotta buy you another beer.
I think he owes you a beer.
I wasn't drinking anything for 25 years, I guess, or more, until I went back to Italy. And in Italy, you've got to buy the water, and the wine is free.
Yeah,
So,
I was just there.
That's funny.
Yeah, I'm recording.
Who's your favorite officer or NCO during their time with the West Novas?
my favorite officer was Major Bill Texton. He and I were great friends. Still are today, great friends. I was with him all during. When first I met him, became his batman in England. It was the best job in the army. So I had no parades, had a great time, and stayed with him until he got hit in Italy. So that's the last I had anything to do with being a batman. Then I went with the fine people at the Royal Hamilton Light Infantry through Belgium and Holland. They were a fine army. They lost a lot of people in Dieppe, the 2nd Canadian Division. That's what I came home with, Royal Hamilton Light Infantry.
Riley.
Yeah, Riley. Yeah.
I went to McMaster, so I know the
Is
Rileys
that-
well.
Yeah. I just seen where Whittaker, my colonel, had just died last year before.
geez.
Whittaker.
Yeah. What do you think was the toughest battle you had to make it through?
The toughest battle that we had was Ortona. We lost over around 2,500 men there, casualties, and 550 dead. Not in the West Novas, but we went into Sicily, we had 100,000 men, and a quarter of those became casualties, so we lost a lot of.
Do you have any memories specifically about fighting in the? Wasn't there the Gully first and then Ortona?
Yeah.
What do you remember of that?
Oh God. Those are things I think you want to forget. The Gully was, that was tough. That was one of the toughest.
Didn't you have to charge right at them?
Well, yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay, well, if you don't want to talk about that, that's cool. Being a rifle company man, do you know if you ever, in a firefight, did you see Germans and did you line them up in your sights, and do you know if you had to shoot at them?
Oh yes, we saw Germans. We saw Germans, and I was with the 3-inch mortars, and you couldn't see. That was a thankful thing to me, because you couldn't see what was happening at the other end. So I was with the 3-inch mortars, and when I went with the 2nd Division, I was with the 3-inch mortars and finished up in Italy with the 3-inch mortars. So that was it.
Did you ever get much shelling around, because they'd want to take you out? Did you get shelled much?
I have an aneurysm now on my heart that they can't operate on, with being too close to a shell, and I got concussion, my heart pretty near busted, and they can't operate. I was told a couple of years ago in Halifax, the only way they would touch it, if it started to bleed, because I was going to die anyway, and they would touch it, but outside they wouldn't touch it, it's still there, and that's...
Do you remember that time when you got hit?
Yes, I do. Oh, I remember the time I got hit, but that wasn't the one that caused my problem.
Do you mind describing that time?
Well, I remember one evening being shelled, and the shell came pretty close, and I would say within 25 yards. And when I got this puff, it seemed to suck all the air out of your body, and that's when I got the concussion. That's the only way that's the only one that I can figure out. I never got hit with that one, but I was fortunate. I was too close to it.
Yes. Once again, being in a rifle company, what was the closest you ever had one of your buddies get hit near you?
Oh God!
I just ran over.
10 feet.
I'm gonna,
And the tape just ended.
I'm gonna ask
so
you
we gotta-
that